Welcome to Kiki's Chat Show. Today is Wednesday, the 12th of July. We're slap bang in the middle of the year 2023. And I'm doing a series called Womanhood, Motherhood, and the Joys of Life. And as you know, this program showcases African women in the diaspora. In fact, you can come from anywhere once you're in the diaspora. In fact, you may even be in the motherland. But if you're doing something good and you're doing something which would be beneficial to other people, either to learn from, to identify with, to whatever it is that would help you, this is a show that you should be watching, and this is a show that you should be sharing with people so that they see what's going on. Today we're talking about herbal medicine and the positivity of herbal medicine. Now, I was talking, when I sent out the advert today, suddenly people started sending me messages back. And one of the messages I got was from a renowned doctor, Professor Konutea Hulu, who has published in the Lancet, the oldest medical journal, that his mother used to boil the leaves of neem, cool the water, and bathe them, her children, in the water when they were convulsing with malarial fever, thus curing them from cerebral malaria. Now, I don't know if you know this, but cerebral malaria kills. Now, in Africa, we know that we use quinine leaves. Quinine, we call it in Africa, but, Europe calls it quinine leaves, were known before malaria tablets came into being. Now, people in West Africa now swear by a certain Chinese herbal drug for malaria when we have our own herbs curing the same illness. So I think our medical schools need to speak up. Now, a lot of people are very scared of pharma, and it is not for the lack of knowledge that these things happen. The Kenyan Medical Research Institute proved and published results in scientific journals. They prepared capsules for the Ministry of Health, and the capsules were ignored, and Kenya preferred the expensive manufactured drugs imported with foreign exchange from their country's coffers. Now, herbal medicine is something which I think we should really get to grips with. We should really start looking at it. When COVID came around, a lot of Africans were busy taking all sorts of herbs to ward off the COVID infection. And it worked. I was taking it assiduously. I was boiling it and drinking it. I was being sent this thing called, I shouldn't mention it because they're not sponsoring me, but I had this cream called Aboniki. Every night I would rub it on my children's feet. I'd rub it on my own feet. A lot of people were using it. And all of this contains a lot of herbs. And we all know that it has helped us. Today, my guest is a very interesting woman. Her name is Adjeley Tsofanye. She is what is termed as a medical herbalist who is passionate about women's health and the science behind GaDangme cultural and healing practices. GaDangme is a powerful tribe in Ghana, and they are renowned for their medical healing practices with herbs. So we're going to interview her, and we're going to ask her questions, and we're going to see where she's coming from. And people, I need you to pay attention to this because it could save lives. We could be saving lives. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I am so happy to have you on my show. I like herbs. I take a lot of herbs actually
Mhm.
because I have a lot of underlying issues, truth be told.
Mhm.
And so I think that the fact that I am alive and the fact that I'm still strong and moving about is
Mhm.
purely because of herbs. I mean, I do take the conventional medicines as well, but I think herbs are keeping me going. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good. Now, my first question, we're not going to beat about the bush because we don't want to waste too much time. And we have so many things to talk about,
Mhm.
all purely based on herbs and
Mhm.
herbal medicine and herbal knowledge.
Mhm.
And so, my first question is, what is the meaning of a herbalist? What is a herbalist?
Okay. So a herbalist is someone who practices herbal medicine, and herbal medicine is the use of plants as medicine to either maintain health or to treat illness. So basically, what we essentially do is we make various things out of plants in order to treat our patients or support our patients during treatment, and optimize their health or bring them as close to optimal health as possible.
So, I mean, do you work for a clinic or how do you do this? When you say we, is it in a clinic or what,
So
what is the setting?
it's up to each herbalist. So I know herbalists who work in hospitals. So there's one herbalist who works, for example, in Whips Crops in the dermatology clinic.
Oh,
I
wow.
myself do one-to-one consultations, but also lectures and talks. There's various ways you might wish to disseminate the information. So a herbalist may speak to you one-to-one and prescribe you with a herbal medicine, or might do a talk and teach you how to make some of your own medicine, because medicine can be as simple as making a tea.
Yes.
So medicines comes in different shapes and forms, but we will teach you how to do it. So every herbalist, I guess, it's up to them how they want to practice their way of bringing people back to health using plants.
How did you um how did you become a herbalist?
So I've grown up around herbalism. We didn't call it herbalism because it was just our way of life. So my grandmother was, and my mum will always be doing some herbal concoction, colonic, bentua, we know all that, making some herbal drink whenever we're ill. And I remember that when I was young, I was always very well. Um, and I was, as I got older, my grandma left to go to Ghana. We kind of abandoned all of that. And I was feeling a little bit unwell, constantly going to the doctors, like, I'm feeling this way. This is happening to me. I'm feeling this way. Oh, no, it's fine. It's IBS. It's something minor. And then you go back. This happened. Oh, don't worry about it. Just do this and this. And I went to Ghana on holiday. And while I was on holiday, my appendix ruptured. And if anybody knows anything about appendixes, if you don't deal with it in a short period of time, you die because the contents of your intestines go into your bloodstream and you're basically on your way out. And so I got the pains on Thursday and I wasn't operated on until Sunday. So I am very much lucky to be here. And so when I woke up, your mindset really changes when you're faced with your own mortality. I was in my 20s at the time.
Hmm.
And one of the things that really stuck out is I knew something was wrong. A long time ago, I knew something was wrong. And because I didn't know what to do, I just kept going to the doctors, and I had to just take the answers that they were giving me because I really didn't know what to do with my own body.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like herbalism, in the way it treats you, it also teaches you about your body and the little symptoms that most people might ignore. So I just thought to myself, originally it was about, I need to learn as much as I can about my body so this doesn't happen again and I don't find myself in this position again.
Okay.
And then I started looking for herbal courses, and here I am several years later.
Wow. This is a powerful story. In life, a lot of things that people do comes out of some adversarial something happened and
Mhm.
it just clicked you in. I
Yeah.
remember myself, I mean, I am into herbs big time, and it's also my grandma because she would come on holiday the day before we come from holiday from boarding school. She's there. she's like there. That's her job. And the minute we arrive, most of my other cousins also come along to our house. This is my grandma's grandchildren. And everyone is given some certain herb because she believes we ate all sorts of things in the school.
Yeah.
So she clears our system before we start the holidays. And truth be told, I mean, I grew up with all sorts of little illnesses, allergies, and everything. One day we go to Ghana, she just mixes something, gives it to me, I drink it, and I stopped wheezing for years, actually.
Oh, wow. Do you know what was in it?
Sorry?
Do you know what was in it?
No. But that's the thing, you see, it's grandma's duty to keep you healthy. And so they mix all these things and they give it to you. Sometimes you're running away, but it's given to you, and then you get better and life moves on. But now it has made me curious as to what are the things that keep us going. And then COVID comes around, and COVID was an eye opener, because at the time they kept saying Black people, this is in Europe, Black people are more susceptible to this and there. But you could see that in Africa, a lot of people were not catching the COVID the way we were catching it and dying, our people. And so people would be sending you herbs. They were sending herbs. They were sending this Abaniki thing that I was talking about. They were sending this thing.
Percocet or
Percocet. I've got one here. I brought it.
Yeah.
And you boil it. This is a herb, my people. And you boil it and you drink it. And it has become like, I love it. Before, I would smell it and think, ooh, what's that? Now, I am drinking it like a trooper. This is it.
Good.
This herb is a healer. It's a magician. Now, people, you may not believe it because you are more interested in dealing with the other medicine. But I call that rather the alternative medicine, because you cannot think that what God has given us, what the universe has given us on our patch of land, which is healing, which is powerful, and we ignore that and take someone else's suggestion. Is that not killing ourselves, people? When are we going to wake up? Anyway, question 2, 3. So how did you become a herbalist, and what did you study?
So I studied at Hartwood. And so basically what's been happening is that a lot of the universities that had like herbal degrees, a lot of them are closing down. I think there's only 1 or 2 left. So in response to that, a college called Hartwood was created to kind of educate the next generation of herbalists, because so many of the university courses were closing down. And so I studied for a total of 5 years. And we learn absolutely everything. So anatomy and physiology, we learn chemistry, we learn biology, we even learn about setting up. So we literally learn about all sorts of stuff. We learn about diseases from the perspective of basically the holistic perspective. We learn about different traditions. Then we have to learn about hundreds of plants, what their chemical constituents are, what the dosage is, and all that kind of stuff, how to put together a prescription, how to make certain preparations. And also part of that, we have to do 500 clinical hours, which is you observe a clinician for some hours, and then you take on the patients as a student and prescribe. And then basically the head herbalist will basically not critique your prescription, but basically just look at, you have to justify why you chose those herbs, and they will then come up with their prescription. And then you can, over time, you will learn how to deal with certain conditions. And we learn how to speak to patients, because what's very different to maybe the Western medicine is that on your first consultation, we speak to you for about an hour. We want to know about your whole life. in order for us to understand what's going on and why.
I remember a friend of mine was always ill and she didn't know what was going on. And so they were prescribing her all sorts of medicines.
Mm-hmm.
They said something was going on with her liver and had this and had that, and her blood pressure had gone up. Anyway, she goes by accident. Somebody said, well, I'm going to see a herbalist. Do you want to come along? And she goes with her.
Mm-hmm.
The herbalist asked her about her life, her growing up, and all of that. And then she gave her some herbs. The herbalist said, I think that you have worms.
Mm-hmm.
You have parasites.
Mm-hmm.
So she took whatever it was, the concoction that they gave her, and she hasn't looked back since.
There are lots of success stories with herbalism. Lots. In fact, a lot of the herbal medicines, the prescriptions that we come to rate, like aspirin, started off from plants. So historically, when they're doing their research and they find that this plant is amazing at healing, they will find out what chemical it is, isolate that chemical, and then turn it into a drug. So herbal medicine has been the foundation of all medicine, basically.
Yeah. And it's all came from Africa, actually. Yeah.
In fact, we've all had our in fact, herbal medicine is the world's primary medicine.
So the question is that now that you are a herbalist,
mm-hmm.
which people do you is it the male or the female who you see most? I mean, with problems.
We see a range of people, but it is a lot of females. So if I'm to judge by the patients I've seen, the clinical hours I've done, is majority females, and the majority of them is something to do with hormones in some way, shape, or form, fertility, menopause, those kind of things. Seems to be like real issues for many.
Menopause.
Yeah, because I feel like people are not prepared for that transition.
Yeah. Or is it not prepared, or people do not realize that whatever they're feeling is from the onset of menopause?
It's a mix of both. I feel like some people know they're coming to menopause, but it's very hard to describe what menopause is like if you haven't already been through it. So, and sometimes when you've had period problems throughout your whole life, when menopause hits you, it hits you really hard. And so we haven't created a culture around supporting women as they're going through various transitions in your life. So when you're coming to this new stage, everyone's telling you you're getting older and everyone's judging you by your ability to have children. And then it makes that transition very difficult. So, and I call it a transition. It's people seem to see it as some really evil thing, but no, so I find a lot of people, like, I've come to this stage in my life. No one knows, no one taught me about this. No one prepared me for this. Usually when you're about to start your period, everyone tells you this is what you should use. When you do this, or this is how you wash yourself. This is how you don't have that for menopause. So a lot of people, it hits them and it's like, oh my gosh, what are these hot flushes? Like, why am I feeling this way? Or I can't lose weight and all that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot that herbal medicine can offer.
So regarding the impact of stress, especially for women, is it that women do not pay attention to their bodies and that they need to be taught how, especially as a woman reaches menopause? Maybe she needs to become in tune with her situation and then accept that this is where I'm at. Or I am about to become menopausal, and therefore, do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So there's two elements to that. In terms of menopause, like before you even hit menopause, there's something we call perimenopause, which can be up to 10 years before the actual menopause starts. So I think society needs, certain indigenous societies, when a woman gets to that age, they're almost celebrated. So it's a welcome transition. They feel good about themselves. They're respected within the community. And they find that at the time, they're like, when I think they were doing a bit of research to compare women in those societies and their experience of menopause, compared to women in the Western society that seem to be just completely ignored, and their value now is like, oh my gosh, now we're going to go for the younger women. And this the symptoms in the Western society seem to be a lot worse than in the traditional society where they're respected. And stress has a huge, huge, huge role to play. I think people don't fully understand what stress is and what stress does. So essentially, stress is the activation of your fight or flight. And the way I like to describe it is your body is behaving as if you're either going to fight the bear for your life, or you're going to run for your life, or you're going to freeze. And the body, if you perceive your friend to be a stress, or if you perceive your boss to be a stress, that perception, your body's going to act the same way. And where that comes in terms of menopause, but even reproductive health, is that the body diverts blood away from non-essentials, which is your reproduction and your digestion. Because at the end of the day, if you're fighting for your life, you're not thinking about going to the bathroom or having a baby, and then starts diverting it to places that are needed. So, for example, your muscles. Because if you're going to have to run, or if you're going to have to fight, you have to be able to utilize that energy. And so the blood gets diverted. So when you think about diversion of circulation, it's not that there's no blood, but it's not going to be as much. You find there's reduced secretions, and secretions in your digestive tract, for example, help you digest your food. So if you're not able to digest the food properly, that means you're not going to have as many nutrients. If your body's not getting fed, that brings its own problems. But also sometimes as well, the impact on the lining of the walls, if you're not producing secretions, like the mucus that your stomach produces to protect the acid, that protects itself from the acid that it produces. So all of that stuff. And if your body's not receiving much, is not receiving the nutrients, but also at the same time is not able to divert away the toxins. So when people think of stress, the stress response was supposed to initially be a response for 5 minutes, maybe even a day, for as long as you're going to fight this bear. But people are having this response for years, and it takes its toll. So even your immune system, at first you become very, very alert. But after several years of being stressed, it's like, imagine being a security guard in an office. In the first few hours of your shift, you'll be fine and very alert. But if you're still working the shift straight, 72 hours later, you're going to start missing things. And it's the same thing with the immune system. In the beginning, it's straight, it's strong. 10 years later, you're still stressed. Your immune system's like, forget, it's going to, sometimes, it starts confusing what's good and bad, might start attacking itself. And that's when you start seeing all of these issues come up. So a lot of the time when we see these signs, it started from like 10 years before. You were in an environment that wasn't conducive to your growth. You was in a very stressful job. You had stressful people around you. So we always look a lot about stress. And I think people underestimate the impact that stress has on the human body.
So basically, to always be on high alert when you describe the fight or flight is one of the major factors which causes illness in women, particularly.
In general. But women, yeah, because you're diverting. The main thing is, if you think about it, you're diverting blood away from digestion. So you have kind of two main systems. You've got the fight, flight. You've got the rest and digest. You can see the names within the system. So if you're in rest and digest, that's when your body is cool, relaxed, you're digesting your food, you're getting the circulation to your digestive system is good. Maybe you might start thinking about starting a family because you're in a safe space, nothing in your environment is trying to attack you. So your body is primed for that. But if you're in fight or flight, you're not getting ready for any of that. So when you're having these periods, so some people, like when they get really stressed, they stop having periods altogether.
Yeah.
Or some people, when they get really stressed, all of a sudden their IBS flares up. So all of these things that I think, like, the world has made it seem like stress is part and parcel of life, but we're supposed to have some downtime. Stress is part of the 100% of the whole human experience.
So basically, women need to listen to their bodies, and they need to pay attention to their stress levels, and because mostly it's women, they have high blood pressure. Women are always they take in a lot of misery, and they kind of think, oh, it's going to get better, or let's give it to God, or suffering is next to godliness, or
No.
all of these things that create illness.
Yeah, I think we as women also need to fight for. I think if people understand what it is to be stressed and understand that it is fight or flight. So every time you're stressed, it's like you're about to fight a bear. Now, when you think of the physical image of you fighting a bear, you might take it a little bit more serious. So if that person is causing you stress, don't be scared to lock them off. But then also we have herbs that might help with that. So there's certain people that they're in very stressful jobs. They can't just quit the job because then the other stress will be to pay, what do they
How
do?
they're going to pay the bills.
How they're going to pay the bills. So in that kind of situation, we might help with something that we might call an adaptogen. So that helps the body to adapt to the stress. It's almost like giving your body extra battery power, and it helps the body. So we have herbs that do specifically that. We would always say to try and put yourself in a situation that stress is not your mantra. But we also understand that sometimes it's not that you might end up leaving in 2-3 years. And we're more than happy to have a herbal plan that, will take you through those 2-3 years.
Yeah.
But it's almost like, so that's why we have to speak to people about what your past was, what you're currently going through, but what's your future? Leave? Are you looking to, can you get out of this family situation? Can you do any? And if you can't, this is what we can do to help you in the meantime. But stress is, I think since I started herbalism, I have a low tolerance of people who cause me stress.
I can see that stress is major, but stress is major, especially people who work in London. London is it's a stress pit.
Everything is so fast.
And everything, you're forced to do things against your will, and and it all comes down to the cost of living crisis and how hard things are at the moment. And you need to pay your bills, basically. You need to feed your children, those who have young children. You need to pay fees, those who pay fees. You need to, etc., etc., etc. How is a herbalist different from an orthodox doctor?
So I haven't studied medicine, so I'm not quite sure. But what I would say is that in terms of the experience, we're very holistic. So if I go to see a doctor now with a cough, or they will basically say to me, and I have other symptoms as well, they will essentially say to me, I've got 10 minutes, because what the GPs, or at least my GP is doing now, is I can only talk about one thing at a time. And I've got a few minutes to do so. As a herbalist, if you come in with a cough, we want to know about your whole life, because the cough might be a symptom of something major. The cough might be as a result, it's not just simply like you might have a throat infection. It might be something else. You might have some form of cancer. You might have maybe it's stress that's triggering it. Maybe it's some kind of allergy that's causing it. But in order to get this bigger picture, I need to speak to you to find out about your whole life. A lot of the diseases that we're looking at. So if I'm speaking to someone about eczema, for example, a doctor might be like, okay, I'm looking at it. I can see that it's eczema. I'm going to give you this steroid cream. Whereas, when we think about eczema, one of the things I look at is the gut. What is your gut like? Because sometimes the skin is like one of the organs of elimination. And so if your skin is behaving in a particular way, it might be that the other organs of elimination are not working as efficiently. You might have some kind of allergy of some sort. So I want to ask you all of those questions. I would even ask you about not even just your bowel movements. I'll ask you about your family history, your lifestyle, your social history, your past medical history, all of those things to kind of paint a picture. Because the eczema might be because there's something that you're eating that you're not supposed to be eating. So rather than I can give you a topical cream that will help, but maybe let's fix the digestive system first. Let's fix your stress levels first, because maybe you're overly stressed and that's how your stress expresses itself. Or maybe you're wearing something or doing something that's not helpful. And I might find that, like, there was this one lady who had constipation. She was in her 40s. And she had serious constipation. And once we started speaking to her, the doctor might say, okay, you've got constipation, I'll give you a laxative. Once we started speaking to her, we realized that there was a lot of an emotional attachment to it. So when we asked her, when did it start? She gave us the age it started, and it was linked to school, starting a new school and not wanting to go to bathroom in the school. And since then, it's just become the way that she just did things. So as much as we gave her some laxative herbs, we also dealt with the emotional element of it, because some of the trauma she had moving around so much was affecting her. So
Yeah.
we will speak to you and speak to you in a holistic way and ask about every single thing. We've got time for you. It's an hour first consultation, just to ask about every single element of your life, because the symptom that you might come and present with might not actually be the issue and might be a sign of a bigger issue with another organ or another body system. So that's what I would observe as a difference. But yeah, the GPs also have their role to play as well. Because if your hand is hanging off, there's nothing I could really do. You need to go to the hospital for that.
Yeah. So someone to sew it together and
Someone
get it.
needs to sew that together. I can't help you right there. Maybe afterwards, when it comes to the healing stage, I can help you with that. But yeah, I'm not the first person to come to if your heart is, in half and your leg is in one place, and so yeah.
One of the things, we've talked about a lot of things, and we've talked about the GaDangme health practices and everything. Now, regarding cultural practices that we've been speaking of, how do you marry that with, or, not you, but we Africans, especially the Christians and all of that, they just don't want to hear the word herbalist because it sounds like witchcraft. And it goes totally against the grain of what the Europeans expect of them. How do you deal with that? How do you manage to help people who have these beliefs? Do you I don't know if you understand my question, but it is difficult to deal with these people. I mean, there was a time when women who were herbalists and who knew what herb to take were actually burnt at the stake. They were called witches. So how do you deal with that?
I'll split it into two in terms of what my view is in general, and then how I deal with it. Okay. So my view is in general is that I feel like as African people, we have not really done much and worked actively to deal with the impact of colonialism. Many of us are still walking around with what I term as colonial mentality. We are walking around as if our colonial masters are still there, and we are working to be good colonial subjects for those people. So if you are not actively fighting that mentality, then by default you are working within that paradigm. You are working within that. You hate yourself and you love your master. So I know that for me, I am actively challenging these ideas because I know what learning my culture has done for me, and I know what learning about my heritage has done for me, and I also know what happened to me when I abandoned it. So for me, I will actively challenge. So even my logo is what we would usually associate with Woye. And in terms of how I deal with it, I'm going to be the person who loves their tradition, who loves their culture, and sees their culture and tradition as more than a form of entertainment, but as a roadmap to healthy living. If we look at the state of Africa now, we can see the what a shock. And when you look at the number on the poster, the person's 25, not like the olden days when our grandmothers were living to 120 and 110, and they were healthy up to age 100, and then they died like a week later, but they were still running around and cooking for themselves. When we were true to ourselves, this is what we were dealing with. When we started copying Western mentality, we're dying at 25. So I know the benefit. And in terms of how I deal with these people, there are different grades. There are some people who just don't want to hear it. They want to be for their master. They want to impress their colonial masters. They want a seat at the table, and they will sell everything to do that. I have nothing to say to those people. Whereas those who see the healing power of medicine, because at the end of the day, I feel like when you're sick and you've tried everything, when you come to me, you are not going to come with that, because you will do anything to be well again. And then when you see how the herbs work, because the thing is, there is science, there's a lot of the stuff, there is actual scientific research to back why this works. And this is what is forming all those tablets. Like Tami right now, they're calling it miracle berry right now. So this Tami that, now everybody's chucking and throwing in Ghana, they're calling it miracle berry in the UK. They will come and create a nice, beautiful tablet from your medicine and sell it to you back at 10 times the price.
Okay, let me explain to people what Tami is.
Mm-hmm.
In our tribe, me, Adjeley and I, there is a fruit, a tiny little red fruit. And that fruit is very sweet. And if you put it in your mouth, the whole day, everything you eat is sweet. Now, this fruit is a tiny little berry, red berry, and it's actually given to you when you have to drink a very bitter medicine or something. So, and all our medicines are brewed. So it's good to put that berry in your mouth, suck it, play it around in your, and then drink the berry, and you don't feel the bitterness. Now, we've been doing this for years, and even with me in my childhood, it was there and all of that. Now, as people are getting very anglicized, they don't even dare to put it in their mouths because it's an African thing. Ooh, yeah. Well, the European has seen it,
Mm-hmm.
and he is now gathering it. And he's going to, as Adjeley is saying, he's going to do things to it and then sell it back to you. That which is on the tree, that you can just walk to it, tear some, wash it, and put it in your mouth. You won't do it, but you wait for these people to come and take it, mix it with other things that could even kill you. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then take
This is
any
how
miracle berry. That's what they're calling it. If you want to Google it, Google miracle berry, and I think the name says it all because it's very good for diabetes, like blood sugar levels, and a lot of that, even the things like nyanyara. So people are always like, oh, this is that word fetish. I hate it. This is fetish. You're bathing with nyanyara, you're this and that, but it's antibacterial, and there's evidence to prove that it's antibacterial. Even things like chewing chakocha, everyone's like, that's a bush thing to do. But when the saliva mixes with the wood, it helps kill the bad bacteria that's in the mouth.
In your teeth.
In your teeth.
Between your teeth.
Yeah. So
and you see, this is why you're on my show. I think it's so important that people start to think. People, we need to think, people, and we need to get back. Look, we're not saying don't take aspirin, paracetamol, don't take your blood pressure. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, why don't you just think a little bit and try the herbs that we were trying before. One thing I need to ask you, though, is they say, we're saying all of this and we're asking people to try, we're asking people to think, and herbs and plants and all of that. But one of the excuses they give is the herbs and the plants are not measured. So they're not tested well enough to cure people. But I do know, like, for example, for constipation, there are herbs that you can take for even this common garlic, common garlic.
Yeah.
Is antibacterial, anti this, anti that. Why do we think that we should take a tablet every time?
It's westernization, it's capitalism, it's colonialism, and it is brainwashed. Like, it's in your face all day, every day, 24/7. There are herbs literally on your doorstep that do amazing wonders. And I could sit here and say, like, one of the easiest thing is, people know chamomile. If you've got period pain and you do like a few bags and make a strong cafetiere full of chamomile tea and drink it the day before you start your period, end on the day, like, it's absolutely amazing. Garlic, I've in fact, one of the ways that my sister now brings, because my sisters were like, oh, you're studying this thing, and because of the way I am, they were like, oh, she's Africa, she's always in that. But the two things that made them take me seriously was my nephew was ill. He came to the house, and he was really, like, he's very active, and he was really quiet. So I knew something was wrong. And he was coughing, and I noticed he had green phlegm. So I was like, okay. So I went into the kitchen. I got garlic. I chopped it up, and then as soon as I chopped it up, I wrapped it at the bottom of his feet because it was about almost 2. Wrapped it on his feet, and I think he was tired at the time. By the time this boy woke up, which was probably like an hour or 2 hours later, so he had the garlic on his feet for like a couple of hours, the boy was running around like a headless chicken. And this, my sister has been dealing with this sick boy for how many days? As soon as he wake up, he was running around like a headless chicken. And that was just putting garlic on his feet. Another thing is a rash. He had like a rash on his chest that wasn't going. A calendula oil, got rid of it within a few days. And calendula is something that you would, like, where I live is, I wouldn't pick it on the roadside, but calendula is all around you. So there are herbs that are very strong and very powerful. And so you have to watch the doses. Those herbs do exist, and we have been trained on them. So sometimes when you're coming with something a bit more serious, so for example, if you had severe period pain, there are herbs that I would use that are more stronger, and I'll give it to you in particular doses because you will need more than something than chamomile. So we deal with a lot of diseases, and the strength of the herbs will vary depending on what's going on with you. So we can deal with the weaker stuff, which loads of people can have access to. Chamomile, everyone can have access to. Stinging nettle, which is just around the, like, everybody knows what stinging nettle is an amazing plant. If you've got allergies, stinging nettle leaf as a tincture, or which is, you know, seeping in alcohol, or as a tea that you take on a regular basis before hay fever season, you're not going to be sniffling. And stinging nettle is just around the, like, everyone knows stinging nettle. Everyone knows dandelion. That root of that is a brilliant liver tonic. And a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with, especially when it comes to estrogen diseases associated with estrogen excess, a lot of it, we forget about the liver, which is responsible for clearing the excess. And the liver is one of the organs of detoxification, and we often neglect it. So, and we've got brilliant herbs everywhere that help with our body. So I think people are using it as an excuse, because at the end of the day, you will say, oh, you know, some of these herbs are dangerous, but you wouldn't mind taking 200 milligrams of a disease that is written on the box, side effects, kidney failure, side effects, death. You will still take it. But when it comes to taking herbs, oh my gosh, it's too dangerous. But you've got 20 tablets in your box, half of them to deal with the disease and half of them to deal with the side effects of the drugs that you're originally taking. And you're not questioning.
Since herbal health and medicine derive from herbs, and we're talking about herbs, how do we preserve these herbal plants? Because, for example, again, I present you with my precursor. This African, it's actually West African. We make soup with it. We make tea with it for ourselves and our children when they feel. You know, my children don't really, but the minute they're not well and you boil some herbal thing and give it to them, they'll drink it.
Yeah.
Because they know that it's going to help them. We all drink this. This was drunk heavily during COVID time, and we're still drinking it. Now, how do you preserve this? I keep mine in the freezer. Someone said if you keep it in the freezer for too long, it loses its efficacy. Is this true? And if so, how then do I preserve it? Because this is only in Africa. And so you get a huge batch and you have to do something. How do we preserve this?
Fresh is always best. So in terms of preserving, you can put it in the freezer, but it's not going to last forever. As soon as you pull something from the plant, the efficacy of that plant is going down. So in the case of precursor, even like when we have flowers, when we pick them fresh, we dry them. So we try and get the moisture out as quickly as possible. But even then, once you've dried it, you know, you've got a period of time within a couple of years that you have to, well, within a year, really, you have to use it completely. It's the same with like herbs and spices. Or alternatively, you know, what you might do is you might steep the medicine in alcohol for the medicine to come into the alcohol. And then that alcohol tincture lasts ages. But when you're dealing with plant material is designed to go off. If you have something that doesn't go off, it's not healthy. So I have a McDonald's sitting on my bookshelf at home, and it's 5 months and it hasn't gone off. That is not healthy. So natural things are supposed to go off, and no matter what happens, your plants are gonna go off. At most, save the seed, grow it yourself. Seed saving, I think, is very important because the way capitalism seems to be going is it's going after our seed supply and our ability to grow healthy, good quality food that is as close to nature as possible. So I would always say that you can dry it, you can freeze it, you can dry it, you could dehydrate, like in terms of dehydration, get rid of the water. But even then, it has its sell by date. Even when we make herbal medicines, after a period of time, you can't really use it.
So, what is the importance of herbal herbs in our daily life?
So I think it's an empowerment. So for me, one of the things that I've learned studying herbal medicine is how to understand my body. Something minor will happen to me, and I'll be like, "Oh, no, Adjeley, you need to watch your digestive system. You need to watch it before it's even become a big issue." You know, I even go to for blood tests, and I will see that it's within normal range, but it's changed slightly to what it was before. I keep my eye on that. So I feel like it's a form of empowerment. It keeps you close to nature and it keeps you close to source. And by keeping you close to nature and keeping you close to source and being aware of your environment, you're also aware of the tiny things and tiny changes that might be happening to you. And you're empowered to deal with them at that point. When people get diagnosed with stuff, know that the symptoms and what was going on happened years before, but you didn't notice.
What, like a diabetic?
Yeah, so for example, you might have noticed. So one of the things that in terms of sugar levels going too high, your sugars would have been spiking. So you've got the urine and stuff, but for some people, it affects their nervous system. They might not start noticing that they're dropping things a lot. They might start noticing that they're forgetting things. And at first you thought, oh, it's just minor, it's this, before you've now got this bigger diagnosis. So I know, for example, like if I'm messing with the sugar a bit too much, how that would affect me. Or even things like if I'm eating and I'm feeling like nauseous, then and like I'm eating a very fatty food and I'm feeling very nauseous, then I'm like, oh, Adjeley, you're looking after your liver. Or I'll go to the bathroom, I always like to look at, what I leave and then if I see any like floating or I see stuff, then I'll be like, okay, this is a sign that this is going on.
Too much fat in your body.
Yeah, so the absorption of fat is not going as well as it should. And one of the organs responsible is like the liver, gallbladder. So the production of bile, something's going on in terms of the liver and its ability to produce bile, because bile is very important in terms of dealing with the fat. So for me, I look at all those little symptoms. Like if I find that I've got eczema appearing in one places, usually if it's not associated with stress, my digestive system, I'm eating what I shouldn't be eating and it's coming out in my skin. So most people might not know the relationship between various body parts, and like if your eyes are twitching, what does that a sign of? Or I'm finding at the bottom of my eyes are too pale. And sometimes like when I start my menstrual cycle and I'm seeing various colors, I'm like, okay, there might be an issue with circulation. I didn't do well this month in terms of moving around. So being able to read your body like a map every single day when you wake up, I feel like herbal medicine keeps you to source, you being able to connect with your own body. We believe that like the people that come to us, they know their body very well. So we will never dismiss things that they're saying.
Yeah.
Like if they're saying they feel this, it doesn't feel right, we're going to listen to what you're saying and see if what you're saying tells a story. And that helps shape how we might treat you. So you might come for a skin condition, but the problem is really your gut.
Our time is nearly up. I think you need to come. That went really fast. People, I've put her social media handle for YouTube and for Instagram in the chat. So it's there if you want to contact her. If you have a niggly problem that you need to deal with, just contact Adjeley. And as she said, she's not going to mix you any concoction. She will put you in the right direction. You can do it yourself, but you need to have a chat so that you have an idea of what the situation is, what is, that sort of thing. You need some consultation. Herbal medicine is very important. We all need to sort ourselves out. We all need to live to beyond 120. And there are people who do live beyond 120.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. One question I didn't ask you was, why are some people suspicious about herbal medicine? Anything herbal, basically.
I think a mixture of colonial mentality, the marketing from capitalism and the capitalist organizations that, you know, are focused on making money. Being healthy doesn't make much money. Being sick does.
Mm,
So I think all of that, like I said, if you're not actively educating and rewiring your brain against those, you know, capitalism, I've got to make money out of sickness, and you know, in terms of colonization, that everything African's rubbish, you're going to
mm,
naturally think that everything that represents you, you should be
mm.
suspicious of, because it's a demonic thing. But how could, like you said, God has given you a plant, God made this. How is that demonic? You're almost indirectly insulting God by suggesting that, you know, is, if you don't know, it's one thing, but you know.
I think that it's not even the fact that you are insulting God. People do not realize that the universe is alive. The universe gives you things. It's bounty. It looks after you. There's its mother. You
Mhm.
know, the way that we view Ghana as our that's the motherland. You know, the universe is there. Africa is where everything is at. Everybody comes to steal, to plunder, to pillage from Africa. And you Africans, you have everything, and yet you have nothing.
Mm.
This is something that we need to continually talk about. This show must be shared. People, you need to contact Adjeley. Adjeley Tsofanye. Her name Tsofanye means medicine woman. Do you know there's been a show on television about Doctor something medicine woman, and she's exalted. It was a show about an American woman in the time of when the Mayflower went to America, and she was a doctor, female doctor, and she had all these children, and she was a medicine woman, and it seemed like a good thing, she was curing. And we have medicine women in Africa, and we're afraid of them. We think they're dangerous. With people, we need to readjust our brain. Our suffering is because of our thought process.
Mhm.
We need to get out of it. We need to start thinking, and there's something I always tell my children. I tell them that, look, if I give you spinach, Ghanaians don't cook just nonsense.
Mhm.
Something people don't know. But let me tell you the truth. If you eat spinach stew, that's blood. That is sorting out your blood system. The spinach. If you eat eggplants, the eggplants that we make, in our, that what I'm talking about, in the earthenware thing, and we make the pepper, and then we put
Yeah.
the eggplant, and then we use the eggplant water to do. It's all to help your body system. We don't eat for fun. The only thing we eat, which is convenient, is the too much meat in our soup that we
Ah.
eat fufu with.
Mhm. Food
But
shouldn't be put to sleep.
yes, but everything is important. It helps the body. When a woman has a baby, she's given certain soups, palm nut soup with certain herbs in it to, get her back into action. When a woman is sick, there are certain things you do. People, why are we forgetting all of this? What is going on? Excuse the noise. There's noise going on, but excuse it. Can you hear the noise?
A
There's
little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
It's okay, it's not bothering me.
yeah. No, don't listen to the noise. Let's just carry on. So basically, we need to start, and I'm gonna get her back because I've got so many questions to ask you. I haven't asked you all, but the 45 minutes is up. We are even in 54 now, so
I'm,
but
I'm
we need to talk some more, and we need to start educating. I think you have to come a few times. Like, you know, in a year you have to come like 5 times or so.
For you, anything.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. But yeah, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank my listeners as well, because I think people have actually enjoyed the show and they've learned a lot from it. I have learned a lot from it. I'm going to start badgering you now for all sorts of things. You're gonna heal me.
It's okay. I'll be there. I'm
Heal
there. That's my job.
So yeah, you gotta keep me alive because I want to be 120.
Even more than that, 130 at least.
Over 130, please give it to me. So yeah, people, thank you so much for watching. If you just joined, I'm sorry, we've just ended, but you can press replay. Replay is there for you, please, and make comments in the chat box or wherever it is. And let's carry on with this suggestion. Herbs are good for you. Do not let them lie to you. Herbs are your gift from the universe. Okay? So embrace it, use it, cure yourself with it. And Nigel is going to come back next month and tell us some more things. I have loads of questions for her. I'm sure you do as well. But let me tell you something. A doctor said to me that our problem is, in fact, in our African hospitals, we need to start dealing with our own herbs to cure our own people and get them back and strong again. So there you go.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, people.
He's someone who's qualified as well.
Yes. Yes, like Adjeley, who has studied, she knows her craft, she's ready to cure you, heal you, put you back on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
People, it is difficult to leave you. I've enjoyed this chat so much. I have more things to say, but I have to go. So a member is saying our mission quality of life is quantity of life. Yes. And we need to live it and live it well. So Nigel is going to be back. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Nigel, for coming on.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a wild pleasure. Stay on the line. I'm switching off. Bye-bye, people.